Welcome to the Hard Questions. I'm Solomon Serwanja. Uganda's economy is struggling. The inflation has hit 9% and government has responded with both monetary and fiscal policies to balance it off or to cool it off. So many questions have been going on government's response to the economy amidst tight challenges, including imported inflation as fuel prices skyrocket. Today on this episode, I speak to the Deputy Secretary to the Treasury, Patrick Ocailap. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Serwanja. It's always a pleasure discussing with you topical issues that affect the economy and also the well-being of people.
Perhaps we can start with, can you paint for us a picture on the state of the economy now?
The economy certainly has been affected by a number of variables, just like any other economy, and in a small world economy. Uganda is a small economy in the world. You find that we have been adversely affected by 7 factors mainly. 1, certainly the increase in prices, fuel, wheat, oil products, which span off from the imports of the raw materials for the cooking oil and other products. There are also, the third area is that drought hit us. So the production domestically of what we expected to produce actually went down. Fourth is also the issue of depreciation of the shilling against major currencies. That mainly arose as a result of a response by our economy to, by the rest of the world, to the increases in inflation in other countries. The developed economies increased their interest rates. That meant that there was an outflow of the investments that the dollar-denominated assets had in this economy. So that went for the high interest attraction in the developed world. Fifth is the issue of, beside the depreciation of the shilling, interest rates have been going up also domestically as a result of the Bank of Uganda responding to the inflation domestically. Sixth, certainly, is the fiscal response that we had to do. That is, we didn't want to inflate the economy further by releasing substantial amounts of money in Q1.
And you're not spending?
No, we didn't spend as much as we wanted because the expenditure was supposed to be about 8 trillion, but I think went just slightly above half of that to take care of salaries, take care of critical expenditures on security matters and etc. So a combination of all these factors required us to have a delicate balance between our expenditures to the level that we would have otherwise spent, about 8 trillion, and what is it that we can be able to spend in the first quarter in order to support monetary policy on one hand, but keep the economy going.
Well, right there, because there have been so many reactions to government's response to the monetary and fiscal policy. Let's start with the decision by the central bank to increase the interest rate to about 9%. And of course, the measure they say is to, mop out, it's a mop out to reduce money in the market. Do you think it was the right move? Because you know that when they increase the interest rate and the CBR as well, and then the cost of money at commercial banks too becomes expensive, and therefore the private sector, which is supposed to drive the economy, finds the money very expensive to reinvest. And that makes the situation worse.
To say that the central bank should have waited and not done that would be actually not doing justice to ourselves, because imported inflation was going up on account of the shortages worldwide, supply disruptions worldwide, and also on account of the outflow of a substantial amount of investment, which was in foreign exchange denominated in this country. So those outflows meant that the exchange rate depreciated. And that meant that for any import that you are going to continue importing, it was going to be at a higher cost. Imported inflation was going to go up. So the central bank had to take a cautious, gradual, but decisive action to mop out excess liquidity in the economy in order to fight inflation. There is no dose that central banks do to contain inflation. The best route they normally do is that one of increasing the interest rates to mop out excess liquidity in order to calm down prices. And simultaneously, we're not sitting back watching at the central bank. From the fiscal side, we also released some amount of money. Fortunately, the rain started for this country of rain-fed agriculture. For what? For production to start in the economy, to support at least domestic production prices, because those ones also went up on account of the drought which was there.
And that goes in the way government has managed spending. And you've said that for this first quarter, you actually spent less to support the decision by the central bank to reduce liquidity. What has been the impact of that? Because we have had, that has in itself had challenges. Salaries for government workers, project delay in payment. That certainly, that move by the Ministry of Finance, the fiscal aspect or the fiscal response to the challenging economy has had a big impact to so many people.
Yeah, the truth about the matter is that...
in other words, people have been thinking that government is broke.
No, far from that. We are not broke. The truth about the matter is that salaries were provided for adequately. However, I think as occurred, we are simultaneously doing so many things at the same time. There is a change of a system from the IPPS, Integrated Personnel and Pension Payroll System in Ministry of Public Service, to the Human Capital Management System, HCM. So the interface between there created some hiccups in translating salaries into the payments, and then the IFMIS picks it up from there for eventual payment of salaries. There have been some glitches in that system as well, but not that there was no money to pay them. We had all the money that's required to pay. As soon as the decision was taken to enhance scientists, the resources were found, and they were there. And you may ask, where did you get the money overnight in terms of paying that gap and the rest of it? 3 areas. One, by some good measure of activity, the revenue collections also performed for the first 2 months of the financial year well above target by about cumulatively 167 billion on account of 3 factors mainly. One, pay as you earn. When they enhanced salaries for the scientists, 30% of that became revenue. 2, when the shilling depreciated on account of imports of oil and other products, the exchange rate, when it depreciates, that means more money. That's imported inflation. Anyway.
Yeah.
You can say it's inflation financing of the revenue. Third and most important also, which is durable and sustainable, is that the systems we put in place in the financial year. You remember we've been urging all along about the systems that are necessary in URA to improve revenue collection other than increasing taxes.
Yeah.
Those dividends are paying us much better now in terms of the IFRIS, the receipting system, which some people, I think, in your constituency do not want to be installed in their place, but a sure system for us to collect the domestic VAT, a sure system for us to collect excise duties. The other one is the stamp, digital stamp on the products. We expanded the scope of digital stamps from spirits and wines and a few items. So those triple effects actually gave us some additional revenues with which we were able to balance out some of the shortfalls that otherwise would have occurred.
Yeah. Let's stick right there. Revenue collection and our revenue policy, and sorry you're not in the URA seat, but you are the top boss here.
Or the policy side.
You're on the policy side. You are having a sick inflation, a sick economy that needs to be resuscitated, and a target for URA collection of revenue. There are so many SMEs that have closed as a result of the challenging economic times, coupled with high taxes from URA, and therefore it's been a delicate balance of revenue collection versus ensuring that businesses stay afloat. And as a result, we've registered, the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises registered over 50 SMEs that have closed.
In
because
Kampala
of that.
alone, or the whole country?
In the Greater Kampala.
Okay, Greater Kampala.
Yeah. So that's a response. So how don't you feel that you're suffocating the private sector on which this economy is buttressed?
By doing what?
Revenue collection.
The tax rates are not discriminative. They are applied, and the payment or the burden, to the best of our knowledge from the policy side, gives a very robust, fair tax system across the board. It also gives the enterprises room to grow and be able to prosper to the best of their ability in terms of their capacity to produce what they have chosen to go in for. However, the number of enterprises that you say, and I certainly am apologetic to them, and there are quite a number who are limping, who have collapsed and closed shop, are a result of the prolonged lockdown season, largely a result of that. Had the lockdown not happened, had COVID not happened, perhaps they would have closed for any other reason, but the biggest part about why they closed was that prolonged lockdown, where there was absolutely no demand, no transactions, and the rest of it. But during the same period of lockdown, some innovative enterprises came up. The issues of buying online items. That enterprise certainly more than almost replaced the number of other struggling enterprises which otherwise were on physical contact in order to get their services. And with the systems that have been put in place, we didn't increase the taxes this year, by the way. So I don't want us to take the idea that I want to dispel the idea that taxes are high. No, taxes in Uganda are moderately compared to a number of areas. Even within East Africa, they are relatively reasonable. High income tax rate is about 30% on quite a number of us who are paying direct income taxes. And VAT has been 18% for the last, since it was introduced actually.
Yeah.
It has been 18%. So I don't think the argument about high taxes being high and the rest of it is a fair argument.
Let's shift gears. We've talked about the revenue, fiscal side revenue. Let's talk about the expenditure, government expenditure. Amidst a struggling economy, we're looking at crazy expenditures, especially from the people in places of power. Just the other day, the media was awash with the procurement of 2 cars for the speaker and the deputy speaker at a tune of 2.6 billion shillings. And you approved it because you look at the ministerial policy statements for the different ministries, including Parliament. So, Ocailap, you signed off 2.6 billion shillings to procure 2 cars for the speaker and the deputy speaker. And speaking of wasteful expenditure amidst a struggling economy.
But with that respect, procurement, it was the Accounting Office of Parliament had provided for that in the ceilings for the Parliamentary Commission and budgeted for it and used the procurement methods that they normally do to get those items.
Isn't it your job to look at it and question it and say, we cannot
stop this expenditure?
Yeah.
The Parliamentary Commission certainly submits their budget to the President, and the President gives comments on their budget. And I'm very sure that comment must have been there.
But you released the money.
We released the money upon request.
To procure
Yes.
2.6 billion?
Yes.
2 cars.
It's my duty to release the resources as requested.
Did you question
and budgeted
that?
for.
Ocailap, do you question wasteful expenditures at ministry level?
At the point, yes, we do. At the
How
time,
did that skip your eye?
not that it didn't skip my eye. We mentioned, I said in the commentary to the budget of Parliamentary Commission, we certainly point out areas that they need to pay attention to in terms of rationalization of expenditures. But so long as they are working within a quantum that was given to them and they have requested for the resources, I'm obliged to give the resources in line with the law.
How do you feel that you spent 2.6 billion shillings to buy 2 cars?
That's a personal opinion. I think let's move on to the next item.
All right, let's continue with the wasteful expenditure,
Yes.
Ocailap. What have you done as the Ministry of Finance in terms of reducing on expenditure to really, amidst this tight...
Yes, that's very true, and I feel the same feeling that you have. And what we did this financial year, which we are executing now, is that travel abroad has been curtailed from the high it was by about 70%. And that's why we raised the money for the PDM, for example. Part of the PDM money we got from cutting expenditure upfront for travel abroad across the board by over 70%.
Wow.
We left travel abroad only to limited statutory travels and to a limited out of moral suasion travel. Those are the few travels that are taking place now. And then we went on to other items in the budget, that workshops and seminars, they've also drastically been cut, some of them to almost zero, and so on and so forth. That's why we got 1 trillion. That's efficiency of the budget and the efficiency of the scrutiny of the budget that were put in place in order to put money to really where the economy is supposed to grow.
Yeah, and speaking about that, let's jump into debt, because part of what you're looking at to raise money is through both internal and external borrowing. And they are running projects. There is the East African crude oil pipeline that you need money for. You're looking for money east, left, and central. First, let's start. Has government secured money to invest into the ECOP project?
Yeah, if you look at the budget allocations, I think there's about, for a start, towards ECOP is about 889 billion, close to 900 billion. And that's what we are supposed to do this financial year. It's supposed to be incremental.
Yeah.
And next financial year, we shall be able to see how much you can put there. So we're determined on that one.
Have you got the money?
The money for ECOP?
Yes.
The money is it's part and parcel of the lead consortiums working on that money. But our contribution, shareholding, we are budgeted for in line with the agreement that was signed with them. 900
billion.
Have you put 900 billion for a start?
Yes.
But I think our overall investment there could be close to 3 or 4 trillion.
Yeah. But do you have the 900 billion now? Have you?
Yes, it's in the budget. You have not seen the budget.
Yes, the budget is your budgeting, but have you got the money?
We have the money. We have the money.
Yeah.
We have the money.
Because the reason why I'm saying
and we're going to release the money actually this quarter. That 800 billion is part of the programming.
And you've got that money?
I've got the money.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we then assume that...
Government never broke.
Do we then assume that you got some of that money from domestic borrowing?
Money is got from all sources, all the combined 3 sources, as you said. No, 2 sources actually. This now from domestic revenue and to some extent domestic borrowing. And those are the 2 large sources where we're getting that money from.
For the first quarter, how much have you borrowed domestically?
We borrowed about 1.5 trillion, in line with the program. We borrowed less actually in the first quarter.
1.1 trillion?
1.2, 1.5 trillion. Again, there's a target of about 1.6. So we borrowed less.
Wow. But what does that mean for the private sector? Because government is borrowing in the same market.
The money is programmed. To the extent that the money is programmed.
You're crowding out the private sector.
No. We're not carving out the private sector. If I showed you the numbers, the confidence of the private sector and the total amount of private sector credit went up from 19 trillion to now 20 trillion this last month. 19 trillion the previous month to 20 trillion. That's not a sign of lack of confidence. That's not a sign of crowding out. I think the word crowding out should be used conservatively, having looked at the parameters, both the government expenditure, government borrowing, and the level of private sector credit in the economy. And also there is the confidence of the private sector in the economy. But I agree with you, we should be mindful about the level of borrowing. I mean the level of borrowing by government and also the level of interest rates.
Yeah. Ocailap, where are we going with this borrowing, especially external borrowing? Aren't we mortgaging the country?
Far from that.
And aren't you worried?
I'm not worried, because why are we there? I think that's a better question to answer. What's the quality of that borrowing? We borrow to deal with areas of growth to this economy. We borrow to build infrastructure. We don't borrow for fun or as a fashion because the neighbor is borrowing there. We must no. We borrow after clear assessment that if we didn't, in fact, the other question to ask is, if you don't invest in that infrastructure now, what's the cost of not doing it? What's the cost of not having a dam generating power now? Because you don't want to borrow and go increase the cost. What's the cost of that to the economy in the near future? What's the cost of not having a good road, which is not built to bituminous status? Those are the kind of questions that we must answer. And then you link that question with, when government has borrowed this money, where has that money gone? Has it gone actually to what government is saying is putting the money for?
And that's the question.
Now, why I take note of the increase in debt and the need to curb that appetite to borrow more.
Yeah.
There is need to curb admission of more projects, even if they are of infrastructure nature to that which you can manage in tandem with our debt sustainability strategy. Yes, it's 52.9% now, but our projections for next year onwards is showing a downward trend as the base of the economy grows.
This government has appetite to borrow. I don't know how you can tame it, especially from the Chinese. Especially from the Chinese. And it's really going to land us in it's going to get us in a very, very tight situation.
Yeah, good observation. But what I want to tell you is that even from that source that you are talking about, we are having serious discussions, of course, about the content and delivery mechanism from that source. We're not oblivious of that fact. And trust us, we pay attention to detail when it comes to the content and the terms of these loans, and especially where they're going is the one that we think is giving us maximum value. But as I said, even if it's that one, if the ratio is tilting beyond the level that we are comfortable with, we shall definitely advise everybody.
Yeah.
And I think the menu we have is actually reasonable enough for us to first grow the economy, and then if we have to borrow more, it has to be concessional terms, the usual good people, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, but also those ones who also have little resources because so many other countries have come on board. So we need to balance between the concessional borrowing and no borrowing, and also deal with increasing our revenue.
Yeah,
that's the most sustainable level.
I hear you.
Yes.
And that means
building sustainable revenue means you must grow the economy.
Exactly, especially on the private sector.
So for now, let's borrow this little one.
That's not little, China.
And then let's borrow this 52.9%, which will come down the other year. Build a base for the economy to grow. Let private sector flourish, and we get revenue from there, and we grow the economy.
Tell my fears are the same as yours, because then you hinted a little bit about it, that where are we putting the money that we are borrowing?
Yes.
Now, when you look at the report that was released by CS Bank, and indeed I know that there's a report by the World Bank and the Ministry of Finance that really speaks out that the projects that are supposed to be implemented are actually not being implemented, and that we are paying interest on loans that we have actually not used. All these things, they're there, and that worries me, because our payment of interest on debt alone is hitting the roof.
Yeah, you're right. I think there are admittedly, there are quite a number of weak projects, weakly managed projects. Mark my word. There are quite a number, just about 6 or 7. We identified them, and we have taken corrective actions on them. It's bad that we reached that level, but I think both the management teams, in some cases, have been changed, and we've got better managers. 2, our project cycle management and contract execution was actually what was lacking in those projects, and serious actions have been taken on them. And thirdly, for some of them, unfortunately, it was again the behavior of your brothers as well, in some cases where assessment for the right of way is given. You say, no, I'm not taking this. I want, because it's government, you want a higher value. You know that expressway, that rock.
Classic example.
Classic example. And that took about 6 years. 4 years negotiating with the UNRWA to dodge that rock. So when UNRWA bypassed the road, he said, well, now give me about, because he had started from 6 billion for that rock. We should go and take a photograph there as one of the classical obstinacy of we, the Ugandans ourselves. So the appeal here is that I think once the government has determined that this is the right of way, it's your land. Let's respect the Constitution. It's your land. When the evaluation has been done by a competent authority of government, accept the value and let the project go on. Don't sit on the project.
But doesn't that speak to the incompetences of government?
Of who?
Of government.
No. The design was done. They knew. And there's another classical example, Lubiji. We're now having trouble with the World Bank. The people went and settled in the swamp, Lubiji. Now World Bank is taking us on to pay the people who went to a wetland, which in the first instance, they are not supposed to go there. Now we are being taken for, upon inquiry about why have you not paid these people very well. They were paid actually. And they said, no, the money is little. They whistle blew to the development partners. The same thing with the asset management road of Sorori Lira. The man was paid money. Then somebody said, no, they pay you little money. Whistle blow. Then when the whistle blew, it's now 7 years.
Wow.
We are just getting commission of inquiry upon commission of inquiry upon commission of inquiry. Honestly, that's not incompetence of government.
Yeah.
That's, I want to call it incompetence of Ugandans themselves to appreciate the role of development in their own areas. Lubigi, you know you are not supposed to sit in a swamp. You go there as if you're a frog. Then you want to be paid. Even when you are paid, the frog sits there and whistle blows. Really? It's terrible.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yes.
And that has costed government.
It has cost government, and the loans you are saying, and that's why you get the paying interest, and also commitment fees. You have committed the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's shift to the parish development model that you really were excited about before it was officially started. Some people have described it as a stillbirth because before it even, clearly picks up, issues of corruption have been cited. You've had the papers, you've seen the news, you've had people being arrested. The parish development model, you thought it was a magic bullet. You've released about 8.5 billion the first quarter so far to support the parish development model. How is it working from where you're sitting?
From where I sit is, of course, the initial challenges notwithstanding. I have not lost hope, unlike you, who thinks that the whole thing is a stillbirth. It's not a stillbirth at all. Why do I think it's not a stillbirth? Right from the time of planning for it, it was well researched. Do you know that it's in the NDP 3 document? We only delayed to start implementing it. The pillars, the 7 pillars of the PDM were all well thought out. And them working together on all of them is the magic bullet for this poverty of ours, which is prevalent in quite a number of places. Now, we release some money for ready, organized groups and circles. You're talking about only one pillar. That's pillar number 3. That's a financial inclusion pillar. There are other 7 pillars of the PDM. And I think linking that financial inclusion pillar with the rest of the pillars is the totality of how we expect the parish development model to work. Now, why am I not worried? I'm not worried because the whole of government has moved in to do 3 things which are a prerequisite for the model to succeed. 1, organize people. Let people know, first of all, that it's bad to be poor. I hope we appreciate that. It's not good to be poor. 2, let people know the kind of enterprise within their area. It's not going to be imported. It's not going to be dovetailed on them. That if we organize ourselves and produce this, engage in these enterprises to produce this, 1, there's a market. 2, there is a source of money through the pillar 3 that will help you buy the inputs, which otherwise were bought by other people in the previous models, for you to put into your production action. 3 is targeting the bigger part of this economy, which is agriculture. Now, with all those 3 combined, and you get people organized in a circle, the channeling of the money goes through the circle, which government has agreed will be supervised by the cooperative under Ministry of Trade, because that's essentially a cooperative.
Yeah.
And eventually, we never know. Those circles can become the nucleus, if they come together, to form primary societies under the real cooperative movement. And primary societies then form the cooperative movement.
Yeah.
It is a revolution.
So what is the problem?
There's no problem.
There is a problem.
No, hold on. The problem is people who thought it was free money for distribution and eating. They have already gone in prison. They have gone. The interest is not to arrest them, but the interest is to get out the jiggers from the what? from the population, those eating people, those people who are eating the money. Get them out quickly. And we must be prompt in that one.
Because they thought
Don't be shy.
It was government donation.
Hold on, shy. Don't be shy. Because people refuse to understand the concept. And it's not going to be 1 year. It's going to be for the next 5 years, that 1 trillion every. So at the end of the 5 years, under the one model and under one pillar, 5 trillion will be in a parish.
Great.
Now, but it must be under well-organized institutions. So far, 3,000, according to the reports I got, 3,000 have succeeded in that out of the 10,000 parishes. It's a long way to go. But I think the message is catching up very well. Let's not tire, because 3,000, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step.
Yeah, but
so 3,000 out of 10,000 is a very good number.
You're very optimistic on this, and the numbers look good on paper. Then close the emiogas.
No, emiogas are addressing a different category.
You have the PDM, you have the SACCOs, you have all these, too many things.
Ndugu Serwanja, emioga, I don't want to talk about it, but it's there for a specific trend, a trend which may not be among the 39%. The PDM is dealing with 39% of the population who are mainly in rural areas. There are also 39% in towns.
Yeah, but the emioga does that.
Emioga clusters actually are not in villages. So if you remove emioga from this PDM, then you are going to make the 39% still stay where they are. You are condemning them to poverty. Let's organize the 39%. That's a target group. And you know I'm a civil servant. They have excluded me from my village because they think that at least I am not among the 39%.
Even me, I went to register,
they chase you away. That's very good. So the system is working by chasing us away, those of us who are in this area. So let's organize the 39%. Let's not bastardize it with the picture of emioga also in place, which will confuse the program. The two can go concurrently, because ultimately we shall have covered the entire spectrum of the people who need assistance, so that they build up resilience for production and sustained livelihood.
Yeah,
that's very, very important.
Wow.
Because now we are dealing with organized people. We'll have removed the jiggers from very many of them. Ultimately, people will fall off the way. They'll fall off, very many who have got a misconception of our thinking. Yeah. They'll fall off.
So many people are looking at it as political money. And
let them go there. Let them go there. It's not very good. And this time, I think, if there's any stick that I've got for biting, I think this time I'm going to bite also.
Real jiggers? You're going to plant them?
Just jiggers and roast them in the fire.
Do you also have jiggers in the main top officials here in Ministry of Finance? Because you may also have top jiggers here that you need to really be
I'm here. I know myself for the time being. Yes, please.
Let's wrap it up. And I just wanted to talk about the last point for me is corruption within this government. Is a jigger, to borrow your word, in this government. There are different corruption indices that have been released by so many different organizations. The president himself is aware that he has a challenge of corruption. Now, you sit at the Ministry of Finance. I know that it's not your job to follow the money that you've given out. But isn't it prudent that you do? Because I know you'll chase me to the Auditor General's office, and the Auditor General presents a report to Parliament, and then the Parliamentary Accounts Committee starts the scrutiny and then make recommendations, and everything goes, like that.
Silent.
And everything goes silent, and that money is wasted. Corruption, Ocailap, in this government.
So what I want to do is, I think let's take it upon ourselves, me and you and everybody else. Where we get it, where you see it, give us quickly. Even me, if I can tell you in my oath of secrecy and whatever, I can release information to the investigation agencies if in the moment I get it.
You release it to me?
No, I can't release to you because you are not an authority in anti-corruption.
I'm investigating.
So anyway, but I think on a serious note, let's apply the issue of corruption. Certainly is humongous, but I think the way to deal with it is let's combine effort in the most transparent and faithful manner without witch hunt. And most important, underlying the proof of corruption is the evidence. Evidence-based exposure of corruption. That's it. That's what does it. The ones who got in PDM were evidence-based. I sent money, how much? Did it reach? Yes. Then where is it? We sat and distributed. Yeah. That is it. To avoid the Book of Lamentations, I think the issue is, let's put a noose around all this money. Let's keep an eye on it. Because from where I sit, I have limitations. But where I can see, as I told you, I do release a memo, confidential.
Okay.
That's what we must do.
I hope we can do it.
Yes.
I hope we can do it.
We can. If you are willing, and everybody listening, and all the public, it can be done. They are there. You are there. Maybe your neighbor.
Patrick Ocailap, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been speaking to Patrick Ocailap. Patrick Ocailap is the Deputy to the Secretary to the Treasury at the Ministry of Finance, speaking to us about the economy and government's response to it. This is the hard questions.